So, hi Deirdre, thank you so much for meeting me today. Thanks
Hi.
for taking the time out of your busy day.
No worries at all. Thank you for inviting me along. It's great to be
Oh,
here.
it's great to talk to you. So, I just have a couple of questions for you, if that's okay, around healthy eating for parents and kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Work away.
So, first of all, you have your own company named the Cool Food School, where you provide some tips and tricks to adults and children around healthy eating habits. And I was just wondering, would you have any advice for those parents listening who struggle during their busy work days to make healthy meals for their children on the go?
Yeah, well, I suppose healthy meals on the go, Kate. I would say batch cooking is
Oh, yes.
tip number one. So I know it's not what every parent wants to hear, but if you make a batch of, say, a healthy tomato sauce at the weekend,
Yeah.
bag it up, have it in the freezer. You have 5 or 6 dinners out of that. You can have just add it to some mince, and you have a bolognese. You add it to some pasta, and you can just have a tomato pasta. You can add it on top of pizza bases. Really quick and easy solutions there with the tomato sauce. And you could put 6 or 7 veggies into it. So, and then whisk it all up or blend it all up. And not that I wouldn't be calling it a hidden veggie sauce, it's just a sauce with vegetables in it. Because I don't think trying to hide vegetables on kids is such a great idea. I don't think that's a good idea at all, really. But there's other things you can do, like roast a big tray of vegetables at the beginning of the week. Again, it's that prep, and I'll be the first to admit I'm not the best at it. But I do feel a bit more in control of the day if I know what I'm having for dinner that evening. But I know it's such a struggle. Like, I know as a parent myself, it's such a struggle to always be thinking of dinners. And in fact, I do on my Instagram, I ask a question most Tuesdays, what are people having for dinner? And get people's feedback, because I think it's interesting for us to see what other, it's great to see what chefs are doing and to see what people at the top of their food game are doing. But to see what ordinary parents and families are doing, I think is really helpful as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I was also just wondering, because I feel a lot of parents out there would be curious, would you be able to give some advice on how to introduce a more balanced diet with a variety of foods with children who might be slightly fussier? Would you have any tips around that?
Yeah, well, I'm focusing this month on my social media all about making food fun. So, I think for parents, and I know I was like this myself, but you're very focused on, the kids have to eat their veggies, they have to eat this, they have to eat that. And the kids are like, no. So it's a very normal stage of development that kids start to refuse foods from about 18 months to 2 years. That is a normal stage of development. It's like they start walking, they start talking, they start refusing food. It's just a normal stage of development. And it happens for lots and lots of different reasons. But I think we as parents kind of freak out a little bit because we're like, oh no, because we see it as going regressing rather than progressing, because learning to walk and talk and everything is progression, but when kids start to refuse food, that's regression. But part of the reason why they do it is because it's a way for them to control a small part of their life.
Yeah.
So what happens then is that parents start to really focus down in on the things that their child will eat. So, okay, Johnny, yesterday he ate avocado. Today he won't touch avocado. So I'm not going to give him avocado anymore. But Johnny might eat avocado next week. You just don't know. So, but parents kind of, because the child has refused it a couple of times, they're like, well, that's off the list. He doesn't eat that. He doesn't eat that. Or he or she doesn't eat this, that, or the other. Whereas we need to keep offering those foods to our children. So exposure to food is a key ingredient in getting our kids to eat better. So Johnny's never going to eat avocado if he's not given avocado. Okay, so we need to keep exposing them. And it takes between 7 and 20 times of being exposed to a new food for a child to accept it.
Okay.
Roughly, it can take a lot more than that. It can take up to 1,000 times. Now, that's in very extreme cases that I've read about. but the research shows that parents give up after 3 attempts. So we need to keep up that exposure. And we can do it in lots of different ways. It doesn't have to be always putting a piece of sliced avocado on Johnny's plate. It could be getting Johnny to help make that plate up for a starter. It could be putting some avocado into a smoothie. It could be using avocado instead of butter on your bread. It could be getting Johnny to come along to the shops and picking out his avocados and feeling them to say, what color, is this one firm? I think this is ripe. I think this one's not ripe. Getting Johnny to be there when you open up the avocado and take out the stone in the middle. It's all that involvement in the food and not making it this one thing on his plate that he has to eat. It's like, oh, do or die, It's that involvement in food from the get-go. I mean, growing it would be absolutely amazing. There's lots of little experiments you can do with an avocado stone. I'm just using avocado as an example because I started off with it. I don't know why I chose avocado, but anyway. Little experiments you can do with avocado where you can try and grow roots from the stone and everything. And all those things are really exciting and interesting for kids, and they help to open them up to foods. So I don't know if that helps at all.
No, that's very interesting. I actually didn't know. I haven't looked at that research before, and that's really interesting that kids need so much exposure to a food before they maybe get interested in eating it.
Yeah. There's a thing called neophobia, and neophobia is the fear of new foods, and that's what happens to kids in that 18 months to 2 years time. Generally, it doesn't happen to all children, but it happens to a lot of children. It's very, very common. And parents, I've met so many parents who said, oh, Johnny ate avocado and banana, when he was 9 months old and 10 months old and 12 months old. Yeah, he loved it, and now he won't touch it. And that's because he's going through this new phase of refusing foods because it's one of the one things he has control over. Also, when a child is that age, parents think that they need more food, but in actual fact, they actually need less food because their rate of growth has slowed down enormously. So if you think of a newborn coming out of the womb at, they're maybe 6 pounds, and then that first year of growth is phenomenal. So they need a lot of food in that first year of growth. But the growth from 1 year to 2 years is much slower. So the quantity of energy that they need from food is much less. But parents think it's the opposite because the child is getting bigger, so they think they need more food. They give them more food, the child eats less, and everybody goes,
crazy. Yeah. But that's a very true point I actually didn't think about before.
Yeah.
And I was just lastly wondering, would it be possible if you could describe some food swaps, some healthy food swaps that parents can use, maybe from a bad food to a better, more healthy food?
Yeah, so I think I wouldn't be calling foods bad as such because you don't want kids to think foods are bad and good. So I wouldn't try not to use that terminology, but there are maybe things that are healthier or give the kids more power, let's just say. So rice cakes is one that I see parents giving their kids a lot. And the food companies have made it very attractive for parents and to give them to their kids. They're like, oh, as if it's a healthy food. In fact, rice cakes are not healthy. They're just complete refined carbohydrates. So if you look at the nutritional composition of them, they actually have very little nutrition in them. So instead of rice cakes, I would maybe offer something like an oat cake, which is lots of fiber in it. Even possibly like a whole wheat cracker or something like that.
Okay.
They're good options instead of rice cakes. And then you start going down the yogurt flavored rice cakes or the chocolate flavored rice cakes. I mean, that's just pure sugar. So, and then in terms of other healthy options, it's swapping the white for the brown. I mean, that's the easiest swap to do. I mean, people kind of think it's not easy, but a really easy one to do is pasta because the kids are not going to notice the difference between the pasta.
Yeah, it's in the sauce. Yeah,
it's in the sauce, and but if you swap your white pasta for your wholemeal pasta, and there's so much more variety of wholemeal pasta out on the market now. There used to be. They used to only be maybe spaghetti, but now you can get all different shapes and sizes. And if you cook the white and the wholemeal pasta and put them side by side, it's very difficult to tell the difference between them. And I've done blind tastings with kids where we've had some white pasta and some wholemeal pasta, and said, okay, which is the wholemeal, and they weren't able to distinguish between the two.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Great. So that's an absolute no-brainer, is to swap the pasta. The rice is a bit more tricky because it does taste different and it does look different. But what you could do is you could mix the white and the brown together for a while.
Yeah.
So kids are more used to it, and then so like in the beginning you could have say 90% white, 10% brown, then 80% white, 20% brown until you're 50-50, and then go down the other way, making very small incremental changes to the kids' diet until you get down to where you want to be.
Okay. And just the final question, I saw on your website that your whole business is to teach children the joys of healthy eating. And maybe I just thought maybe you'd like to just talk about that a little bit, how you do that and how you do that for children.
Yeah, okay. So what I was doing prior to COVID was I created fun interactive workshops for kids, and I went into mostly preschools and taught them. So it was all about using the senses to explore food. It was about touching, feeling, smelling, listening to food. And then if they want to taste it, they can taste it, but there's no pressure to taste it. We do all kinds of little fun activities like plant seeds, do some chopping. I have these really safe knives and peelers that kids can use. They're safe from age kind of 2 upwards. And so that's what I was doing. And then during the pandemic, I went online and taught cooking classes. So I've endeavored to make my cooking classes as fun as possible. We do a bit of singing and dancing around the kitchen, and I try and tell them fun facts about food and interesting things about food. And then they're cooking, so they just love that. And what I've done now with my workshops that I would have taught into preschools, I've now taken them online. So I've just created I'm just creating a new section on my website. So those workshops will be online and they'll be available to parents anywhere in the world. They'll come with a resource box with the safe knife and peeler and stuff like that. So so that's how I make food fun. And if you were to see my workshops, you'd see.
It's crazy, does it?
I'm like a world entertainer with food, basically. Yeah, that's not what I set out to be, but that's what I to be.
Well, thank you, Deirdre. That was so informative. Even I learned a lot, to be honest. So thank you for taking the time.
No worries, Kate. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope parents have found it interesting or helpful. And if you have any questions or queries, just please feel to reach out to me through my website or on my social media. I'm always more than happy to help parents, because that's what I do,
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.